All right. Hi everyone, I'm Dad. So I've done a couple of things, and I thought that where I could start is actually a bit of my research. So originally, when I proposed a talk to this, they're like, actually take it back and make it something personal. So we'll start with my research that I just conducted last year and got my second master's around this idea of racism in museum spaces. And why I picked museum spaces specifically is because of the stories they tell and how they reflect upon society. So cultural institutions are beyond just place-based ideas, but I find them actually one of the most important reflections of who we are as people in society. So let's start. It's about narrative representation audiences and looking at the intersectionality and the potential of technology in that space. And again, I'm going to stress the potential because I do not think we're there yet. I think that we talk a lot about it, but I don't think we've actually addressed the real issues. And so this actually is a very good quote for me to start, and it's about the focus of technology masks that there are major underlying changes that are social, cultural, economic, and environmental. So again, it's the intersectionality of identity in who we are and how we place ourselves in the world, and what that means when technology is just being used or being advocated as the end-all, be-all solution. And so again, technology for me is how it shifts power and how it can be utilized to shift that power dynamic. And so, yeah, I want to begin with why museums even matter, the new definitions, and breaking down demographics, and then case studies. And just a little bit about me. So I am a first-generation immigrant. My parents came from Algeria, and they moved to D.C. And when we had first arrived here, my mother was meandering around, not a word of English, and the space that she felt the most comfortable with, because you could look at things, you didn't have to read the language because she didn't read English, was museum spaces. And you have to keep in mind that it comes from a place of ignorance because she wasn't aware that this space was not for her. She just meandered in with her scarf and was like, cool. And that was us, me and my sister, just running around the Smithsonian like a bunch of savage children. It's the same thing also with Whole Foods, y'all. We went to Whole Foods because it had buttermilk, and buttermilk and Algerians go way back. So I did not know it was a bougie thing until I got much older. But museums to me matter a lot because it's who you see on the walls that reflect who you are as a person in that space. And so, yeah, just like a little bit of facts, just because I find this absolutely insane. So 55,000 museums around the world. Heritage sites are also included. That's a whole separate problem. We don't have to go into that, but like all of it's there. And then the history of museums is one that is dictated by powerful and privileged people. It is, unfortunately, the history of it is one that comes from, this is cool, let's steal it. This is amazing, let's put it in the cabinet of curiosity in some way or some capacity. And so I'm not saying we remove that from the conversation. I would like to dismantle the system, but since we can't, we just have to work around how to navigate it. And I think that technology can be well placed to resolve some of those issues around how we exhibit and how we talk about these stories and who gets to have that space. So British Museum, one of the oldest ones that's formally recognized. And again, my whole argument is that museums matter because humans matter, because the story of humanity matters. And so in that space, in that context, they are not graveyards. They're not like dead pieces of who gives a damn, but rather like it's a reflection of who we are as people. And the active record, like the archive nature of museums is what I want to stress as the most important thing, not necessarily collections. Like, I don't care about collections. I feel like they could come and go as, like however we want to use them as. So there's fluidity there. And so, yeah, the new definition, it's a whole new world. A lot of old museum types are very angry about the world being or changing, actually. And a lot of the new definition now is about how it is more community focused, more inside, more reflective of society, more like there's a whole sense of representation. If whatever you have on your walls should represent who you have as your audience. And so the audience and then curators and stakeholders should all have some kind of reflection on a more diverse and more inclusive nature. And again, yeah, so there's a whole shift towards this community partnership. And so, yeah, diversity museums, and this is the part that I do want to spend a bit of time on, just because the numbers are kind of appalling. So you have 93% of directors that are white. And then there was a study conducted earlier this year, and they found that 85% of artists in museum collections are sorry, double, about 87% male and then 86% white. And then you have, of course, museum audiences are 89% white. These are all within the last 2 years, these numbers. That does not reflect the United States at all. Like 0% doesn't come close to the reality that we live in every single day. And I think, and they stress that 28% museum staff is people of color. That's because they're the janitors. For the most part, you have a couple of stakeholders that are there as tokens without real engagement, without real stakeholder capabilities. And when I say stakeholders, it's the ones who can make decisions. It's the ones who can decide who to hire, who to train, what mentorship programs can you get into. So it's people of power. And again, intersectionality is really important because, yes, there's more females in this space, but there's not enough people of color, full stop. And so you have 60% of female staff, museum staff are female, but they only occupy 43% of those senior positions. So again, it gets complicated and more complicated and more complicated. And I just wanted to really touch on a couple of, I thought, really interesting case studies. But curated by Kai, the High Museum of Atlanta, and Awaken, which was an exhibition done with Aboriginal community in Australia. Just to go really quickly, so the High Museum of Atlanta went through a complete overhaul a couple years ago and rebranded essentially. It went from 15% to 45% of non-white visitors within 2 years, like incredible. And now that's closer to the percentage of people of color in Atlanta, which are 51% people of color. They did this because of curation. They highlighted exhibitions that were more reflective of a more diverse world. So you have, out of the 15 shows, 9 highlighted the works of artists of color, women artists, and gay artists. And as well as the local artists, that was another thing that they stressed. But it's just like this community-minded, this inward-looking, how do we reflect and best serve our community and our audience. Curated by Kai she is based right now in San Francisco, used to be an educator in DC, and essentially uses VR to kind of take kids who don't have the space or do not have the privilege to go to exhibition sites and kind of brings it back to them through this VR case. And they have revolutionized how people can approach this. Her lived experience as a teacher, as a Black teacher in DC, teaching Black and brown kids, really reflects on how she seeks this information, how she kind of gathers the opportunities. And so the quote that I have on there is, "I decide on content based on what I struggle to find when teaching." And this was specifically to brown and Black kids. And Awaken is the last one, and this was 2018. Art Processors, which is the company I work for at the moment, worked in close collaboration with a couple of partners, and they essentially took something that was a cabinet of curiosity, which was Aboriginal communities' objects, and essentially awakened them through technology. And again, this solution was based and developed through a very, very close partnership with a lot of external stakeholders to ensure that what was being presented correctly and accurately reflected what the communities wanted. So there's just a couple of examples there. And then museums, like a lot of cultural institutions, are facing a shift. And it's a whole new world. There's a visitor marketplace, the new role in museums, as well as the business case. And when I say understanding new landscape, I mean, what do people want now? And it's much more interactive, much more immersive. It's just changing on our understanding of what role technology can play, which is not only more interesting and more engaging content, but content that is actually reflective of what we want to see. And again, the last point that I want to leave you with is the fact that there is a money component, because social value for diversity is really important, and I don't think it does anything. People are like, that's great, we'll check a box, we'll move on. But when you bring in the financial aspect, it actually takes this case and makes it a little bit stronger. Racial and ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above national industry medians. And then companies in the top quartile for gender diversity are 15% more likely to have financial returns above industry peers. So, I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's very unfortunate, but like, it is what it is. So like, it's all about cash. And so like, if cash is one way to motivate people, then I guess so. And again, it goes back to reflection and representation, and people feel strongly when something is something that they can recognize. So that is me done. Thank you so much, and appreciate people's attention.